In this edition of I Escape, a city lives in fear after a desperate felon shoots his way out of a downtown courtroom and disappears.
He said, "Move over. I'm telling you to move over. I'm not playing with you." He put the gun to my head.
And 38 inmates attempt a mass breakout that was so daring, it shocked a nation.
There was always two things in Republicans' minds. One was to educate and the other was to escape.
Around the world, over 9 million prisoners are behind bars. These are the stories of the few who dared to break out. March 2005, Atlanta's Fulton County Courthouse. The retrial for 33-year-old computer engineer Brian Nichols is nearing an end. The charges, false imprisonment and the brutal rape of his ex-girlfriend.
By all accounts, the prosecutor was doing well, and it looked like Nichols was going to be convicted.
A guilty verdict would see Nichols locked up for the rest of his life. Once at the courthouse, a lone sheriff's deputy escorts Nichols to a holding cell deep inside the building. Before appearing in Judge Roland Barnes' courtroom, Nichols knew he'd be changing into civilian clothes, a routine, after months on trial, he was extremely familiar with. So when Deputy Cynthia Hall, a 51-year-old grandmother, removed his handcuffs, he turned and attacked her. Nichols beat Deputy Hall to the ground, bruising her brain and causing multiple facial fractures. Now in control of the deputy's weapon, he heads across the sky bridge directly to Judge Barnes' courtroom.
I heard a very loud sound. It was muffled, but it was a loud sound. And then a couple of seconds later, I heard an extremely loud sound.
Nichols walks up to Judge Barnes and shoots him in the head.
I looked first at the judge, and I knew instantly that he had been shot and that he was already dead.
Nichols turns and fires again, killing court reporter Julianne Brandow.
My thoughts were, the judge is dead. I look straight ahead, and Mr. Nichols is standing in front of me, and he turns the gun and points it to me.
Scared for his life, Robbins runs out of the courtroom. Bravely, Deputy Hoyt Teasley begins chasing Nichols out of the building. But instead of running, Nichols turns on the deputy and without hesitation fires. As Deputy Teasley drops to the floor, fatally wounded, Nichols makes his escape. A ruthless killer is loose on the streets of Atlanta.
We are urging any of you who are listening to this broadcast, if you've got any idea where this man is, that you would please call the Atlanta Police Department and turn him in.
After stealing a tow truck, Nichols realizes he needs another, less conspicuous getaway vehicle. For computer programmer Almeda Kilgo, what should have been a normal day quickly becomes the most frightening experience of her life.
The tow truck came in behind me, and that was unusual because no tow truck would park in this particular garage.
And then Nichols opens the door to Almeda's car.
He said, "Move over. I'm telling you to move over. I'm not playing with you." And he put the gun to my head.
He then tells Almeda to get in the trunk, but instead she makes a run for it. Amazingly, Nichols lets her live. His escape has now triggered the largest manhunt in the city's history.
The buzz around the metro Atlanta area was palpable. I mean, people were in fear. They weren't going out at night like they normally would.
The authorities need a miracle to stop this killer. March 11, 2005. Downtown Atlanta is in a state of chaos. Accused rapist Brian Nichols is armed and on the run. Resurfacing in the Atlanta suburb of Buckhead, Nichols shoots and kills Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent David Wilhelm.
After he killed the ICE agent, he drove the ICE agent's truck to the Duluth area. At some point, he came across Ashley Smith.
I put my key in the door and I unlocked it and I turned around and he was right there. And I started to scream and he put a gun to my side and he said, "Don't scream. If you don't scream, I won't hurt you." So I said, "All right, okay, I won't scream." I went in the house and he shut and locked the door. He said, "You know, somebody could have heard your scream already, and if they did, the police are on the way, and I'm going to have to hold you hostage, and I'm going to have to kill you, and probably myself and lots of other people. And I don't want that." And I said, "Okay, I'll do what you say." He said he wanted to take a shower. So I said, "Okay, you can take a shower." He said, well, I'm going to put a towel over your head so you don't have to watch me take a shower.
Sensing that behind the gun, Nichols has a softer side she can reason with, Ashley Smith begins to tell him about her life.
My husband died 4 years ago. And I told him that if he hurt me, my little girl wouldn't have a mommy or a daddy. And she was expecting to see me the next morning. And if he didn't let me go, she would be really upset.
Every day I will bless thee, and I will praise the name forever and ever.
For 7 hours, Ashley talks to him and even reads him excerpts from her Bible.
This is the man that you should be looking for. He is armed and dangerous, but if you...
We watched the news. He looked at the TV and he just said, I cannot believe that's me on there.
The next morning, 24 hours after the killing spree began, Ashley Smith asks Nichols to allow her to visit her daughter. As soon as she's out of the apartment, Smith calls 911.
She had made it out, called 911. The page did not indicate that there was any hostage involved, only that there was a lone barricaded gunman armed with multiple weapons.
Taking no chances, Lieutenant Tom Doran and the Gwinnett County SWAT team move in on the apartment.
I then directed our entry team, using ballistic shields, to move into a position where we could observe the door. If he came out with a weapon, he did not submit to arrest, he would be shot.
Surrounded by armed police and heavily outnumbered, Nichols gave up without a shot being fired. In November 2008, Nichols was convicted on all 54 counts brought against him from his escape. Sentenced to life behind bars, ironically, he is still waiting the retrial for the alleged rape of his ex-girlfriend. Coming up, the question for 38 political prisoners wasn't should they escape, but how. Belfast, Ireland, 1983. Her Majesty's Prison, The Maze. A complex labyrinth of razor wire, high walls, and cell blocks designed to be escape-proof. The Maze was the British government's maximum security answer to the increasing numbers of IRA prisoners.
I can remember one prisoner after a riot in another part of the jail telling me that, remember, mister, you're not dealing with me in here, you're dealing with an army. And that's what these men were. They were soldiers of an army.
Despite the high level of security, 3 senior members of the IRA were forming a plan to escape from H Block 7. Brendan McFarlane, jailed for his part in the bombing of a Protestant pub in Belfast in 1975, sentenced to life imprisonment.
Our experience of the H blocks was of a very, very brutal, harsh regime which was designed to depoliticize us and our struggle and to break the back of Republican struggle.
Jerry Kelly, jailed for his part in the bombing of the Old Bailey in 1973, sentenced to life imprisonment.
Depending, I suppose, on the length of sentence you were doing, depended on what the priority was, but generally speaking, escape was the top priority, certainly was with me. I was doing a life sentence.
And Bobby Story, a senior member of the IRA, he was convicted of possessing weapons, sentenced to 18 years.
There was a substantial political dedication to the success of the escape.
McFarlane, Kelly, and Story were not planning to break out on their own. They were planning a mass breakout to liberate 38 Irish Republican Army prisoners, the entire population of cell block H7. No easy task from the most secure facility in Europe.
The way the maze was planned was that there were prisons within prisons, so it was a very complex place to escape from.
The inmates have realized that the food van that carries meals from the central prison kitchen to the cell blocks is the weak link that they've been looking for.
The prison food lorry was identified as one of the key elements and a weak link in the system, because this lorry travelled in and out of every block, and also it was discovered that it travelled outside the camp.
Their plan was simple: seize control of the van, fill it with IRA prisoners, and drive quietly through the front gate. But there was a complication.
The control room had to be taken. That was the nerve centre. If anything was going wrong, all of it would have come back to there. That was the heart of the, if you like, the block.
In preparation, the IRA prisoners had spent months softening up their guards.
We would identify the nature, the character, the hobbies of each of the warders. We would get people who had similar likes, go up, have a cup of tea with them, have a chat with them, spend an hour talking to them.
They've been pally with you, calling you by your first name. You'd been calling them by their first name, and you've been the best of friends. You think you've been long lost brothers.
By Sunday, September 25, 1983, the prisoners had armed themselves with chisels, knives, and hammers. 5 of the senior IRA prisoners are armed with handguns. 2:30 p.m. Bobby Story is cleaning the floors in 8-7 Central area known as the Circle.
He shouldn't have been doing that job because he was high up in the IRA. But I got a nod from the Circle, let him through. So I just blew with the wind. The unconscious were saying, don't do it. But I wasn't going to rock the boat.
Against prison procedures, co-conspirators Jerry Kelly and Brendan McFarland have also been allowed into the Circle.
I was taken in. Oh my God, I regret it to this bloody day.
The signal was to be me calling for a cleaning machine. It's an electric polishing machine, but it's called a bumper.
Brendan McFarland gives the signal to attack.
Have you got the bumper down there?
And then turned around, then the gun was shoved into my stomach. I thought, oh, these boys mean business. Give me a key. Just handed the key. I thought, oh, I'm done for now.
Within seconds, prison officers all over H Block 7 are overpowered and taken hostage.
The actual operation of physically taking over, overpowering all the guards in H Block 7 didn't take any more than about 15 seconds.
Their next hurdle is to overpower the officer in the central control room.
And in that control room is alarms. If you had pulled that alarm, the escape would have stopped there and then.
But unwittingly, the door to the central control room has been left open.
The warder who was on the floor in the control room jumped up and tried to close the door, a wooden door, on Jerry Kelly.
Jerry Kelly is determined to get through the control room door, and he will stop at nothing to secure his freedom. The Maze Prison, Belfast, September 1983. The biggest escape in British history is underway. In the control room, prison officer Adams is fighting to keep the unlocked door closed with his body weight. He's an arm's length from an alarm switch, but if he moves to trigger it, he'll be shot.
I said, now be very clear about this. This is an IRA operation. If you do exactly what you're told, you'll be fine. If you do not, we will not jeopardize this escape.
Kelly squeezes his pistol through a gap in the door and fires 2 shots at Adams.
They had to take him out. They did do it. They shot him in the head.
The IRA prisoners are now in control of all internal security systems in Cell Block 7. As the food van arrives and parks in its usual place, its driver, prison officer David McLaughlin, is taken hostage.
The driver had to be secured. He then had to be sort of briefed in what was expected from him because he is the only person that could have driven that van around the camp. We couldn't do it, not even dressed up in prison officer's uniform.
38 of the IRA's most dangerous prisoners pile into the back of the waiting food delivery van. Kelly positions himself on the floor of the cab.
His foot was tied to the clutch of the truck. He was told there was a grenade there, and that if he moved at any time, or if he went the wrong direction, that I knew the way out, which I did, that I would pull the pin, or else I would shoot him.
He then orders McLaughlin to drive to their final hurdle, the Tally Lodge Gate, a 1-mile journey. Standing between them and the gate are 2 internal checkpoints.
Because officers on the gates were familiar with that lorry passing through 3, 4, and 5 times a day, with the same driver and the same orderly, checks weren't made properly.
Passing undetected through gate after gate, the hijacked van reaches the final checkpoint. The Tally Lodge is the only way out of the maze.
The Tally Lodge is just the place where the workforce clocks into work and clocks out.
9 of the 38 men jump out of the back of the van carrying 4 handguns. Dressed in prison officer uniforms, they take the guards on duty completely by surprise. After a brief struggle, the prison officers working on the gate are taken hostage. The gate is now under the IRA's control, but they have a problem.
We arrived in the Tally Lodge area slightly later than what we intended to.
The arrival of the van coincides with the prison officers' change of shift.
There was between 30 and 40 prison officers, and they all ended up lying basically on the floor.
One of the prison officers who was coming off duty got away and ran off, and he raised the alarm.
The whistles going, they now knew it was an escape, but up to this stage they thought it was a small number of people.
In the battle for the Tally Lodge Gate, Officer James Ferris is fatally stabbed.
Jimmy's dead. That's Jimmy Ferris. Make your mind.
With an officer down, the plan was spinning out of control.
Prison officers knew that we were in trouble, that we were sort of facing difficulties, and they were shouting at us, "Give yourselves up, it's all over."
British Army snipers in the watchtowers were now zeroing in on their position, and the prisoners have to make a split-second decision: surrender or run for their lives.
I then went out the back and said, "Let's go, everybody go." So they jumped out the back of the lorry, and we all ran out the front gate, across what was called the Governor's Car Park, and into the fields.
The snipers in the watchtowers are reluctant to fire on anyone for fear of shooting a guard in the melee.
So there's this big mixture of people fighting each other, hijacking cars, people then pouring across the road, fighting across the road, and jumping across these coils of barbed wire into an open field which sloped up.
Amazingly, all 38 of the IRA prisoners make the break. Bobby Story and 3 others run and hide under the reeds in a nearby river.
Every part of us was under the water except this part. So we had our heads right back into the water, and we were holding on out of the side of the bank, and one of us was getting the shakes.
As officers began searching the riverbanks, one spot ripples in the water.
And they arrested us, stripped us of our clothes, they handcuffed us at the side of the bank.
Ahead of the search parties, McFarlane and 7 others steal a car and drive to a farmhouse in Dromore.
We drove in, secured the family in the house, and noticed that there was a doorway to the side of the house, which almost like a drive-in workshop, and we were able to drive the car in and close the door down. So from the air, we had disappeared from view altogether.
They run by night and hide by day for 4 nights until they reach the Republican-friendly area of Armagh. Jerry Kelly and his group carjack a series of vehicles, fleeing to Lurgan, where they squeeze under the floorboards of a Republican house.
You couldn't sit up. When we first went in, there was a lot of rubble from when the house had been built. We pushed the rubble to the back. We got sleeping bags in. We got a bucket down. We got coffee jars, jam jars, stuff like that.
One of the biggest search operations ever mounted in the province is now underway. All available soldiers and police, including members of the Ulster Defence Regiment, have been called out on duty.
Of the 38 men who escaped, 19 remained on the run for a significant amount of time. 3 were never recaptured. Jerry Kelly and Brendan McFarlane were on the run for almost 2.5 years before their arrest in Amsterdam in 1986. After his release in 1989, Jerry Kelly played a major role in negotiating the Good Friday Peace Agreement, finally ending the Troubles.